The future will be amazing, and that's all well and good. But what about today? You can feel the rush of a 400-horsepower Nissan Z, or climb to new heights in the all-terrain Nissan Frontier. Light up the road in the all-electric Nissan Ariya that feels like a sci-fi dream come true. The future will be great, but today is made for thrill. All you have to do is get in a Nissan and drive. 2023 Ariya and Z not yet available for purchase. Expected availability is this spring for 2023 Z and this fall for 2023 Ariya.
At the Jeep Memorial Day sales event, start your next big adventure with great deals on a great selection of Jeep brand vehicles. Right now, get 0% APR financing plus $3,000 total bonus cash on 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WK limited models. Don't miss this great offer. Hurry into the Jeep Memorial Day sales event today. Financing for well-qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital. Not all buyers will qualify. Residency restrictions apply. Offer ends 5/31/2022. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
You are listening to an entertainment program put together by a company called Financial Ineptitude. Anything said on this show is not an endorsement or professional advice. Would you really want to tell a court of law you were suing us because you thought taking financial advice from two idiots on a podcast put out by Financial Ineptitude was a good idea? Really? Clown hat smiley face.
Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the China Shop. Thanks for coming by. Get your asses inside. We got another amazing special guest episode for you today. I'm Shopkeeper Dan. With me, as always, is Kyle, creator of FinancialIneptitude.com. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Who cares? We've got a great guest I want to talk to.
You're right. We are joined today by legendary MMA fighter / Wall Street badass Paul Halme. How you doing today, Paul?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Don't forget, two-time best-selling author.
Don't forget he fought a shark, punched its eye out.
I saw that movie.
Yeah.
Wasn't there tornadoes too?
Yeah, no sharks for me. Those things are scary as hell.
How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. I'm melting up here in Texas, so it's wild right now, but we're getting there. We'll get through it.
It's funny because we grew up in Tucson. Mm-hmm. My wife was from Phoenix, so like she's used to that kind of heat. And we're up in Illinois now, and like we get days where like everybody else is melting. It's 90, and we're still out walking in the mornings. Like, man, this is beautiful.
I guess a beautiful morning. Yeah, here you wake up and it's 85 degrees. It's like, come on.
It's 85 and humid too.
Dude, yeah, it's rough. It's
I hate that feeling, like going into the garage and it's just suddenly you're sweating. Like, what happened?
That's what I've been trying to convince my wife. I was like, we don't have to live in Texas. And I normally say July and August, but now it's freaking turning to June. It's like, we can go somewhere else eventually. And I love Texas, but man, it's like, it really tests you for, July and August. You're just like, come on.
What do they call people who leave the hot states in the wintertime to go up north? Do the people up north have words for that? Because we call the people come down south snowbirds.
Yeah, we call them snowbirds when they come down here, but I don't know what it is when you go up north. But I'm going to figure
sweatbirds.
Yeah, I want to figure it out because man, it gets brutal.
Oh God! All right, Paul. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I see that you used to work for a major Wall Street firm.
Yeah,
gotta know about that.
Yeah, it was wild. My story it's pretty interesting. I grew up in a small town in South Dakota, which is in the middle of nowhere. If you don't know where it's at, just go like almost to Canada in the middle of the country. And grew up there and had this dream I wanted to play golf. So I ended up getting a scholarship and playing golf in South Dakota in college. So I wasn't never really into MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything. And I met this guy one day at NCAA study halls you had to have that as a freshman so you wouldn't flunk out and get kicked off the team. So apparently the football players didn't pay attention because half of them got kicked out that first year.
Study hall or school?
Yeah, both. Yeah, both. They wouldn't do wouldn't even do their study hours. But so I met this guy. He just looked different than everybody else, and he had this kind of swagger about him. When I started talking to him, we kind of hit it off, and he was a wrestler. I was on the wrestling team. But he's like, "Hey, you want to come watch the UFC?" I'm like, "What is the UFC?" And this is 1993 or 94, and I'm like, "What is the UFC?" Oh. And we're talking VHS tapes. We're talking like crazy olden days. And he's like, "Man, I'm going to fight in the UFC someday. I'm going to do all this stuff." So you fast forward 4 years later. He's going to come to Texas because back then you could only go to New York, LA, or Dallas. And none of us could afford New York or LA. So we're like, guess we're going to Dallas. And so I'd graduated and he was going to school down here, but he's only going to school to do jiu-jitsu or to learn jiu-jitsu and then try to get in the UFC. And then moved out of Texas. It was awesome. Loved it here. And then a few years later, my friend makes it into the UFC and it's kind of like, oh my God, the whole world is changing. This is crazy. It's like, so I got to see somebody like build this incredible dream from the ground up in BFE, South Dakota. And it's just such an amazing story. And then he wins Ultimate Fighter 4. I get to travel all over the country with him.
Who was who is your friend?
Travis Luter.
Travis Luter. I'm
He
trying to
won the
remember. I
Ultimate-
watched a couple of those seasons of the Ultimate Fighter.
They were fun back in the day. I don't watch them much anymore, but the Ultimate Fighter 4, he was on the comeback season. So, and it was the craziest season ever because that's when him and Matt Serra won. And then Matt Serra actually knocked out GSP and took GSP's title. And then Travis almost beat Anderson Silva, but didn't. Yeah, I mean, it was the craziest episode because you guys are all like scrappy veterans.
Yeah.
And so it was just a lot of fun. And I got exposed to jiu-jitsu and MMA, and jiu-jitsu led to me becoming a stockbroker because this is in 2001. I was just kind of doing odd jobs, and I kept seeing this one guy that dressed pretty nice. And I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a stockbroker. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I like stocks. He's like, you do? I'm like, yeah, I don't have any, but I mean, I bought some stuff in the past. And he's like, do you have a degree? I'm like, yeah. He's like, bro, we're hiring anybody right now. This is, in the .com bubble. They were like, they couldn't hire enough people. So I went in and they were like, do you have a business background? I'm like, nope, but I have a degree and a good personality. And so I got hired and I did that for 6 years. And I tell people it's still the greatest job I ever had. Like I learned so much and I had so much fun and met such amazing people. But then entrepreneurship kind of kept calling. I was helping my buddy with his gym. My wife was like, well, maybe you should open a gym too. And then did that. And then one thing led to another. And then I was an entrepreneur. It's been a wild ride.
Jeez. Okay. let's step back real quick to South Dakota. Cause I've met people from South Dakota, but I've never met anybody from North Dakota. And it actually makes me wonder if that actually exists. Like, have you ever met anyone from North Dakota? This is actually it's even crazier than that. I'm so dumb that I went to the northernmost college in South Dakota. So I could literally almost see North Dakota. And we actually had to play against two North Dakota colleges. So yes, I can verify there are people up there, but it is literally the coldest place on earth. Like I could never live there. Where I lived was bad enough, but I think if you look it up in the history books, like Minot, North Dakota, where the Air Force Base is, has recorded like one of the lowest temperatures on earth because there's no trees and the wind just rips through the plains. It's horrible. I would never recommend it to anyone. Thought we'd get cold in Illinois. Oh man, it's brutal. So what did you do as a stockbroker then? Like what was this in Dallas or was this over where the actual exchanges is right? No, it was in Dallas. Like we get to go travel and stuff, but most of the time we were in Dallas, but it was such a cool thing because when I got hired, it was just crazy. It was the top of the bubble. Everything was going nuts. And so they were hiring people left and right. So I got to start off in different areas. So first start off like in service and just talking to people. And that was awesome to me because, I grew up lower middle class. My parents, the only time they talked about money was when they were bitching about it and complaining that we didn't have any of it. And I'm like, well, this sucks. Money's evil. And then I get this job and people call up on the phone and their account pops up and I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of commas. And then you got nervous and then you start talking to these people and they're just regular people. And you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. And the more conversations I had, the more people I met, I was like, it's amazing. There's so much money in the world. My parents didn't tell me about any of this stuff. And then you just talk to these people and you'd get ideas and you're like, okay, I got to start investing. I got to start, doing my 401k. I got to set up a HSA, 529 accounts. It was the best job ever. And then from there, after, then of course 9/11 happens and then we're literally trying to not lose our jobs because, the whole market was imploding. Yeah. And so got through that and then luckily ended up, making all the cuts when they were laying people off. And then I transitioned over into trading, that was a blast. Like I had so much fun doing mutual fund and stock desk trading. And then of course got into options and that was terrifying because it's fun when you're doing options for yourself, when you're trading it for someone else. And this is back in 2000, this is probably 2003. The technology really wasn't that great. So you're having to put in all these weird orders and it was like super stressful. So I couldn't get out of that job fast enough. That was terrifying. Were you doing that like on the phone or like that's when like people were actually in the exchanges and running orders are run by hand? Yeah, we were doing them on the phone. So we'd have like these high net worth customers would call up and they'd be like, hey, I need this, and this. And you're just trying to like, oh my God, it's like, you're freaking out. You're like, I like the pay raise for being an options trader, but I don't want to put these orders in because, they're super strict. You make a mistake and you get in trouble. You make another mistake, you don't work there anymore. So it's because you're messing with, they're high net worth clients. So it's like, you don't screw up orders. And it was, I didn't enjoy that at all. Did you ever copy any of their trades? No, God, no. I didn't have the money to do a lot of their trades back then. I mean, they would do some crazy stuff. Like what? It's like different straddles and, and then we had one guy one time wanted to do and I still couldn't tell you how we did it, but do an iron condor back in the day. And I had to have like call our help desk. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And they're like, oh, no worry. We'll get so-and-so on the phone. And I'm like, anybody come help me. I'm good with regular options, but man, you start getting into that multi-leg stuff and butterflies and all those fun ones. I can't do it. I'll watch Options Exchange or whatever, Option Action on CNBC, and that's about as close as I get to those anymore. Do you still invest today? Oh yeah, every day. What do you like now?
Man, I've been beat down. I'm an Amazon fan, so I've been getting kicked in the nuts for the last 4 months.
Talked to a few of those.
Dude, it's rough. Luckily,
it's not crypto.
I got that too. That's where the MMA stuff comes in handy. I'm used to getting beat down, and man, this year's just been brutal because I was like, crypto I just dabble with, but like Amazon's like one of my favorites, and I'm like, this is my baby. This is going to go to forever. And then this year they apparently didn't get the memo, and it's like they've just been like going down and down. And I'm like, oh, cool, the split will at least get some kind of a rally. Nope, sold off again.
So what hurts more, a kick to the face or watching Amazon fall?
Amazon falling.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. A kick to the face you can recover from. You're kind of like, you shake out the cobwebs. You're like, that sucked. Amazon going down. You're just like, I don't understand this.
6-month beating.
Dude, it's just relentless. And finally it looks like we're getting some hope. Like today, the last couple of days have been nice. So it's like, oh, thank God, let's fix this.
So did you ever like study like fundamentals or technical analysis or any of those types of things, like to learn how to invest better, or was this just more of a so what did they put you through?
Yeah, they put us through everything. It was so much fun. Like we learned all kinds of stuff. And then of course, fundamentals, I tried to do that and I was like, I don't like this. I don't get this. I don't want to do these like things where you're trying to look at all this. And then I was drawn to technical analysis because I'm a visual person and I like to think in shapes. So I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So if this goes here and this goes here, then it's overbought and it's oversold. Okay, then you can kind of at least see, because especially if you're shorter term trading, it's like you have to know which direction the momentum's going. Otherwise, you're just guessing. And if you guess wrong against the momentum, you're going to get murdered.
Yeah. Can agree from experience.
Yeah, we've all been there. Like, well, it's like Amazon. I'm like, man, this is a recession-proof stock. And I'm like, apparently I don't know what's going on.
Well, Dan, what was the story you just heard recently? We just talked about it in the last episode, I think, about Amazon.
Oh, they're cycling through the entire workforce of available employees. Like people that are of the proper age and distance within an Amazon shipping facility. Like by 2024, they're just going to be out of people that they could possibly employ because they will have already employed all of them and they've quit or fired.
That's insane.
The whole workforce.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I saw another one too, like their automation stuff they're doing, it's just next level. Like they're not going to, eventually, but it's like when they get
that's the idea, right?
Yeah. It's like the machines don't take breaks. Right? Yeah, it's crazy because we have an alliance, or it's called Alliance Airport by us, and it's a big corporate airport, FedEx, UPS, and everything. And Amazon has just this massive facility there. And it was, a few years ago, I'd be watching FedEx and UPS planes flying over, and now all I see are Amazon planes. So I'm like, okay, these guys really have it figured out. Yes, there's going to be bumps in the road, but it's like, man, I see more and more of these planes flying around. And I'm like, what's going on? Let's make some money.
God damn. All right. So tell us all the MMA. Like, how did that help you? The MMA background.
Man,
so we've heard a few different times, like just having like a just general sports background, like helps people when it comes to trading. Like I think it's the discipline. But
Derek Oldensmith was a world-class kickboxing champion. He runs the trade desk over at T3.
Nice.
He says he likes to hire professional athletes, or at least people who have
fighters
experience. Yeah, not necessarily fighters, but like any professional sport.
Oh yeah, no, it makes a huge difference because I always look at like the people that I'm around that are just not as disciplined or as focused, and going through and doing jujitsu, you learn to deal with like a crap ton of pressure because it's like everybody hates doing cardio, but imagine you're doing cardio, but the treadmill's laying on top of you and is trying to choke you. It's like, this sucks. This is hard. So in the beginning, you just get beat up a lot and you tap out a lot. And then you're like, okay, I got to figure this out. So you start finding solutions like, okay, if this guy's smashing me, yes, that sucks, but that's not the average person's getting smashed and they panic and they try to push the person off, which is the last thing you want to do because then you get gassed out, tired, and then they choke you even more. So you got to accept like, okay, this position sucks, but if I protect myself and you can't choke me or armbar me, I can still breathe. I can get my heart rate down. I can find a solution. So you think differently as you get more experience. Like, okay, breathe through it, figure it out, and then react. Because the average person wants to react. I think we see it a lot. Like we see it a ton right now. Like I have family members will be like, "Oh, are you still doing stock stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love it." And they're like, "Oh man, I'm thinking about selling. The market's down." I'm like, "Well, you're an idiot." I'm like, because they're family, I can say that. And then they'll be like, "What do you mean the market's down?" I'm like, "Well, when are you going to retire?" "Oh, in 30 years." I'm like, "You think the prices are going to be higher in 30 years than now?" I'm like, well, probably, but I don't want to lose any money. And I'm like, well, if you sell at the bottom, you're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah. Stop looking at it.
You're locking it in.
Yeah. It's the hardest conversation to have with people. And especially when it's family, because you're just like, oh my God. It's like, it's like, please don't sell. Like I had my aunt I remember at COVID, she's like, "Oh, the market's crashing. I'm selling everything." I'm like, "No, please don't." I said, "This is temporary. Unless it wasn't going to be temporary, then we're all going to die, and then don't matter anymore."
It doesn't matter, right?
And of course, dude, she sold at the bottom, and then I'm like, "Oh, how?" And then of course, you go to Christmas time, it's like, "Oh yeah, did you see where the stock market's at?" And then of course, she don't want to talk to me no more. Right. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, man, I was buying. I was talking with my wife. When it was March, when that one bad day where it was just brutal sell off, I was like, because I have my business, so I'm like, I can't dump all my money in the market, but I'm like, because I had to keep some cash, because I'm like, I don't know how long we're going to be closed with the non-essential business BS. Mm-hmm. So I was like, but at the time I was like, okay, we're buying Amazon, we're buying Apple, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had more liquid cash just to start dumping in. I mean, because this is, what was Apple back then, like $98 or something? It was insane,
right?
So yeah, it was, and then of course we saw this massive rally for a year and a half, which was amazing.
With the Fed buying everything basically.
Yes, yeah. Now we're paying for that rally.
Mm-hmm.
How low do you think everything's going to go?
Man, I hope we're getting closer to the bottom. It's like, I think we'll probably get, because I love charts. So, you get that death cross, the 50 under the 200-day moving average on the S&P. So it's like, man, as long as we're below that, it's like, who knows how long this is going to go, but it keeps, I tell myself every day we get one day closer to that ugly thing. Cause we'll get some rallies. Like we had that one, was it like a week and a half ago? And then we're kind of getting one now.
Yep.
But there's so much downward pressure. A lot of these are going to be just bounces, until we get that consolidation or the panic sell off, which sucks.
I've got my eye on the pre-pandemic high as I think the bare minimum.
Yeah. I think that, what's that put the S&P at?
338. 239, right around there.
Oh,
yeah.
That's another, 20%? Yeah, it's going to be fun.
10, 15.
10 or so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we can do that. We can live through it.
Well, that's the minimum.
Yeah, it's
also, I think I just saw too today, Powell said on in his hearing that with hindsight, inflation is definitely not transitory. It's like, hindsight with foresight wasn't transitory either.
Yeah, but they're gonna drop the gas tax. That's gonna fix everything.
Oh yeah, Nothing will get those oil profits up quicker.
Yeah, it's like they're gonna make a ton of money. It's so crazy. You almost feel like you're living in that one of those comedy shows. You're like, is this really our world? It's like, I don't get it. It's hard not to watch the news because, like, I refuse to watch the news. My wife wants to watch it, but we always have CNBC on all the time at the house. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's an addiction. Mm-hmm. And I joke around because, like, I wanted my family to grow up with a money mindset. So, like, my kids have grown up, like, they understand CNBC, they understand the market, they understand the basic things. So it's always on the house. Like, family comes over, people get annoyed. Like, you want to turn the channel? I'm like, nope, not till 3. It's
the market closes.
Don't touch the remote.
How old are your kids?
19 and 17.
Okay. What stocks do they invest in?
Well, my son's kind of a knucklehead. He started off good. I mean, he was funny. Like, I was so proud. I'll never forget. This is a funny story. So he came downstairs the day he had just turned 18. He's like, Dad, guess what I did? I'm like, what? He's like, open up a Robinhood account, it's my own adult account, blah, blah, blah. And I bought some Amazon. I'm like, dude, awesome. I did a great job as a dad. I'm so happy. Yeah. Next day, my wife's laughing. She's like, hey, Chase, tell Dad what you bought. He's like, oh, I went and bought a lottery ticket. I'm like, Jesus, oh my God, did you learn nothing?
What did you buy, AMC?
No, I bought a physical lottery ticket. I was like,
bro. Dad, gonna be rich any day now.
Yeah, bro, I was like, come on, you just set that money on fire. And of course, what don't happen, he won like $5. And so he's like, oh, this is great. Went and bought 5 more and then lost everything. I was like, dude, come on. But yeah, so he does a lot of the basic stuff. But it was funny. And it kind of makes you wonder, this new generation, these kids, like the COVID kids that didn't go to school for like 2 years and just did stuff online. They're super advanced. Like, he was asking me questions about option strategies the other day. And I was like, whoa, calm down, dude. Let's get a portfolio first. I said, oh, my friends are trading options on Robinhood. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's your only strategy. That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But they got lucky, man. It was for 2020 and 2021, they were making money. I mean, because you could just throw a dart and make money.
Yeah, I think, what was that George used to say, our Trade Pro Academy guy that we like to talk to? He said that during that time, you could basically just type in your initials and buy it, and you can make money.
Oh, I'm so regretful of not jumping on the AMC when it was doing what it was doing, because or GameStop. I was like, both those. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I guess it was the boomer in me, the Generation X. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, I can't buy into this thing. It's worthless. But apparently you can make a ton of money.
It's short squeeze. Dude,
it was crazy. I think it just defied logic. But I guess that whole year defied logic.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are your kids into Roblox or any of those too? Or
No, mine's into Xbox.
Can you imagine? It's
Madden and
Microsoft,
2K.
so he's buying Microsoft, huh?
He needs to. Yeah, I need to talk to him about that. It's like they want to play. I'm like, dude, you're going to be 20. It's like, get off the Xbox. But then I remember I would play video games when I was his age. So it's like,
I still play him now. I'm almost 40.
You got to have some escapes.
Yeah, exactly. Back to jiu-jitsu real quick. I had an epiphany the other day. What is jiu-jitsu based off of? Because I have a theory.
It's based off of the original guys that started. It was based off of how a smaller person could use leverage and angles to kind of subdue and basically exhaust someone bigger than them and then be able to finish them in a submission hold.
Do they have cats?
Cats?
Yeah.
No.
You ever see a cat when it goes defensive? It just flips over on its back and then sticks all its claws out. Like, It looks like a jiu-jitsu fighter.
Yeah, it does. Because it's so weird. Because you're teaching people like jiu-jitsu is so different. Because we'll get wrestlers and people that come in, but learning how to fight off your back is like so not how we're wired to do things. That's why it's such a beautiful thing. Once you figure it out, the average person doesn't know what the hell's going on. It's like, this guy's on his back and why am I losing? It's like, I don't get it. It's like when you watch the first UFCs, I was watching, I'm like, oh man, that's Hoist Gracie guy. He's getting killed. They're killing him. And I'm like, what do they do? They tapped. What's tapping? Oh my God, he choked him to death. Oh, that's so cool.
He choked that one guy out with his clothes. It was amazing.
It was amazing. It made no sense to me at the time. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And we still get guys that come in and they're trying to learn stuff. And it's like, but when you learn how to fight off your back, I tell them, it's like, so you don't have to get that good in class. You just got to be just average in class. If something ever happens to you on the street or a self-defense situation, you're going to have a huge advantage because everything you do is backwards from what the human mind wants you to do.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. and it gives that overconfidence to whoever is attacking you.
Yeah. They think that they're doing well. And it's like, oh, no, you're not doing well.
What's the instinct of the person who doesn't know what they're doing when they're fighting somebody who's on their back?
Man,
mine would be just stand up and just start kicking everything you can reach.
Yeah. A lot of them are, they'll actually come down to the ground and try to punch the person, which is like the worst thing you want to do. Because then their head, they're like, oh, if I get on top of this guy, I'm going to punch him in the face. But then you do that and then they go into their guard and then there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do from there where the average person's just like trying to throw a punch and they're exhausted because they haven't trained their body at that high of a heart rate. And, and it gets crazy. Like I got to do some stuff. It was so much fun back in the day. I was training some air marshals and they took me out to one of the facilities in Dallas and they were doing some different tests and they had like these crazy things they would do. Like they'd bring people in and they'd have you watch like this movie, like, oh, it's this flight thing, blah, blah. But it was all actually a setup to basically have like this scary thing would pop up and this crazy loud music to spike your heart rate. And then they'd have people watching it try to thread a needle.
Oh.
And like the average person can't do it.
Huh.
Because once your heart rate gets above, I think it was like 150 or 155, you start losing motor reflexes if you haven't trained. So like they teach these guys like, because what these people are like overlookers from like other airlines who like want to see how the process works. Like we have to be able to do things with a high heart rate and do all so. And the guys wouldn't be like, oh, that's okay. But then when they'd have to do it and they're trying to thread a needle, it's like, yeah, now imagine, you're trying to fight somebody and shoot at them on an airplane. It's like, they would do crazy stuff, man. They would do like burpees and run and then go shoot targets, never normal, like shoot cold, like, oh, this is a nice, comfortable day and sit in the shade. These guys are wild, man. They'd go run, do burpees. I'm like, man, I have a hard enough time shooting just normal. But it was cool.
So what's your business now?
I still have the one gym. One time I had a bunch of different gyms, but I still have one that I like. It's my baby. It's like my escape, although I didn't like it very much in 2020 when they shut it down and I had no money coming in. It was not a fun thing to have.
Yeah.
And then we started like 5 years ago consulting for MMA gyms, which has been just a blast. And of course, that was awesome until 2020. And then you're consulting for non-essential businesses that aren't that great balancing their money. So it was interesting, but it's coming back now. And then, my real passion, and it's funny, it just all kind of evolves. Like it goes back to where everything started, being a stockbroker and investments and money. So like I'm teaching these guys how to build their gyms up and make money. And then they're like, well, what do I do? I have money now. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's have some fun. Let's, set up a brokerage account, set up an IRA, set up an HSA if you can, and teaching them the basic stuff about that. And then showing them how they can invest stuff. And then they start building up money. And then it's just so much fun. So I'm doing more consulting on that side of it. And we've hired coaches in the consulting company to do the day-to-day stuff. Cause it's like before COVID, it was the easiest thing ever. It's like, open a gym, have some mats, run some good ads, have an appointment setter, have a salesperson, and teach really good classes, make a bunch of money and just balance it out. But then obviously the last 2 years they've been rebuilding. So we hired coaches to kind of take that off my plate. And then now I do more of the, okay, you're at this level in your gym, what do your investments look like? What do your finances look like? And none of these guys have anything. And I'm like, all right, you're going to be 40 years old and you don't have an IRA, dude. It's like, come on. And they're like, oh, okay. So it's been super rewarding to see these guys like setting up accounts and sending you screenshots of like, oh my God, I hit my first 10K. I'm like, yeah, it's just going to keep getting better. And then of course this year I'm like, well, there's a little bump in the road, but it's going to be okay.
Dollar cost average. Read this.
Yeah. That's what I tell them. I'm like, hey, like, don't sell. It's like, just buy more. Do you still believe in this company? Yeah. Well, then buy more of it. And if you don't believe in the company, buy the S&P 500.
Yep.
It's like, it's not the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing is having the mindset and like the mentality. Like you said, there's some days when the market's really down. It's like, I can't log into my account because I'm just going to get depressed. It's like, nope, not logging in today. It's like, today didn't exist. Wait for an update. There's nothing worse than open up your app on your phone and just seeing red everywhere. You're just like, come on.
Yeah. I haven't even looked at my retirement accounts this year. I have no idea where they're at.
Yeah. Just keep putting money into it.
Just I'll wait until we rebound, then I'll take a look.
Yeah. Get through that because it's been rough.
It's easier to see it lower as long as it was green on the day. That's a weird thing, huh?
It is true, yeah. Just that green, man. The human mind, and I think a lot of it's just the way we're not taught about money the right way. Like especially like growing up, like I grew up, it was like I didn't understand money or learn anything about money until I was 26, and I started working, as a broker. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much money in the world. And then through jiu-jitsu, I got to meet a lot of different industries. Like I'd meet doctors, lawyers, surgeons, police officers, all kinds of different people, pilots. And then you become friends with them and see how they talk to their kids. And they're talking about money and college and saving and planning. And I'm like, whoa, this is not even fair. It's like these kids get a huge advantage. Like my family was like, money sucks and you're never going to have any. And I'm like, well, that's not a good start.
Did your kids get any sort of financial education when they went through school?
No, not really. It was ridiculous.
Learn everything through YouTube.
Yeah, it was like, and then, through CNBC, and then like I'd always make it a game to talk with my son about stocks and stuff. And so it's like, since he was a kid, we've always been talking about different things like, oh, Amazon's at this or Apple's at this, would you buy this? And he's like, yeah, I use that. I'd buy that. And I just want him to understand like the basics of money. It's like, like he wanted to get a credit card at 18, of course. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, but I was like, yeah, you have to start building credit. So it's like, get a card. And then I had to, I'm teaching him like, listen, this thing can never not get paid off the end of the month. I said, you can make a payment like every week or whatever, but you have to zero this thing out every month. And so you don't get charged interest and all that stuff. So far so good, but we're only a few months into it.
I wish that credit card, like at least that was covered in high school, like something explaining like how quickly that debt can snowball on you.
It's insane. It's so fast.
I was lucky. My mom was very good at teaching that kind of discipline. I never carried a balance on my credit card if I could help it. In fact,
That's huge.
I never used it if I could help it.
Yeah, I mean, that's gigantic. I mean, because a lot of people, they just rack up a ton of debt and then they try to figure out ways to get out of it the rest of their life. And they can't invest because they're like, oh, I want to invest, but I've got too much credit card debt. And Dave Ramsey says, I got to pay all my credit card debt off. And
right.
It's like, well, yeah, but if you never start investing, it's like, what's the point of paying all your debt off? Because you're just going to be at zero anyways. So it's like, just start investing, start with anything.
Right. So let's see here. It says you, so you like to talk to these different people about how to fix their finances, how to invest and all that. Where, like, do you have like a CPA or a CFA or any of those sort of designations? Did you go back to school to get,
No, I don't have any of those. So I use all the proper disclaimers.
Okay.
So like I tell all my guys or gals when they work with us, I'm like, you have a business, right? You're a business owner, correct? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, do you have a bookkeeper? If they say no, it's like, all right, stop. Get a bookkeeper. You don't even have books. And they're like, well, I have a business checking it, and then I separate my business and personal expenses. I'm like, well, that's great. Congratulations. It's like, get a freaking bookkeeper. So like, I'm really hard on people. I'm like, you have to have a bookkeeper and an accountant, because if you don't have those things in place, then you're just guessing half the time, and you're making mistakes that are going to cost you a bunch of money later on, or, not having the education. So yeah, I'd make sure people definitely seek the right people for those things.
Other than just not investing, like what are some of the other common mistakes you see from the people you do talk to?
And they don't learn to pay themselves first is the biggest thing. They literally, they'll make more money, and everybody's seen it. As you make more money, what do? You buy more stuff. It's like you go from driving a Civic to a Lexus, or you go from, wearing whatever shoes to nicer shoes, or you buy a Rolex or something. And so they'll spend all their money like, I don't have any money at the end of the month. So to me, that's the biggest one, is like, you've got to start paying yourself first. Even if you're an employee working for a business, you can still do that. Set up an account and do a direct deposit out of your check that goes into another account, so you can use that for investing.
Anything else?
Man, that's the biggest one is, not paying themselves first and then not having the basics, having an IRA or if a 401k, if they're eligible for that, some kind of retirement accounts, and then going into do other investing after that, but covering the basics first. Everybody wants to skip ahead. They're all like, oh, I want to trade options or I want to buy in on this real estate syndication. I'm like, well, that's cool and everything, but you don't have the basics covered. It's like you need to have all these things dialed in and then go look at doing the fancy cool stuff, because that stuff takes a lot longer to materialize.
What was that quote we liked, Dad? No one likes to get rich slow.
Yeah,
nobody likes to get rich slow.
It's perfect. That's the world we live in. Everybody wants it now. Give it to me now.
Right.
And of course the Dogecoin millionaires didn't help any, but now they're all broke. So it's like none of them are millionaires anymore.
Oh God, who is the quarterback I just saw? The one that plays for Jacksonville. He took his entire signing bonus in Bitcoin.
Oh God. Yeah.
I think it was something like 23 million and it's worth like 8.5 right now.
Yeah, hopefully he's not selling.
That's what I wonder. Like, did he get paid in Bitcoin and keep it in Bitcoin, or did he cash it out immediately?
Yeah, you wonder what he did. And if he did keep it, you're like, hope it rallies back for him, poor guy.
He had to have kept most of it. Otherwise, why get it in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I know. It makes no sense. Unless you're just hoping that it's going to spike on the day you get your check between the time you cash it and
right. Call me old fashioned. I like to get paid in dollars and then buy my investment.
Yeah, definitely the way to do it there. That's scary to put everything into something like that where you just don't know.
Mark Cuban was trying to do that with the Mavericks. I think he was trying to pay them in crypto. Like, no, fuck that, man.
They're like, nope, give us our pay.
I want to get paid in the Russian ruble.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Oh, is the ruble still doing well? It's doing pretty well actually lately.
I believe it's got to, because it got hammered down. People were talking about that like it was a great time to buy when it got super low. I was like, yeah, but I don't think I want to buy that. I'm probably getting in trouble or get on some watch list or something.
You're right. We were joking about that too. Like, it's never been cheaper. Let's pick some up.
Let's pick some rubles up.
I saw a tweet pop up the other day. It's somebody who convinced their family in Ukraine to send them their money so that way they could buy crypto for them to protect it against the ruble crashing. And then they said like the ruble's up like 5,000% and crypto's down.
Man,
fuck.
Oh, yeah, they're not getting invited over for Christmas. It's like
that just makes everything worse.
That's unreal.
So I'm interested in why you think everyone can become a millionaire.
Yeah, I get a hard people are like, oh, I don't think that's possible. And I'm like, man, it's just math.
Equation.
Yeah, it's just an equation. Yeah, it's math and time and just putting money in the market and doing it. So it was when I first got in as a broker, you're doing all these goofy trainings and everything, but then you're using these compound interest calculators. And I'm like, you'd see the charts and the graphs. I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Why don't they show us this? And it's like, this is the easiest thing ever. And then you start putting it in, it's like, okay, $400 a month, 20 years at 10% interest is like 1.1 million. And it's like, can you do that? And people are like, oh, I could do that. But then what happens is people do it maybe for a year or two and they stop. So you have to make a commitment. It's like I tell people, I'm on a 40-year plan, since when I was 26. So when I first started working there. And so it was a 40-year plan because that's how we did everything. It was like, okay, it's 65, 66, So I'm halfway through that. And it's like, I'm not stopping and I'm not putting $400 a month away. I'm putting way more. I'm amplifying it because I want to have it when it hits just to be like, I don't care. I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I believe 100% anybody can do it. I mean, you just look at the compound interest calculators and historical charts of the S&P 500. It's like, if you just ignore the market and really put money away and just keep doing it, you're going to have a way better retirement than if you don't.
I think, oh God, what was the dollar figure? It was like $6,200 or somewhere around there for like, if you just put that into a 401k and just bought the index for your kid, like when they're born.
Oh yeah.
By retirement age, millionaire. That's it. That's all it takes.
It's so crazy. Can you imagine if somebody would teach us these things? It's like, I would have loved to have been able to know that or done that for my kids when they were born.
I wish my mom knew that.
Yeah. It'd be great. It's like, oh, I got this huge head start. But, but the problem with people is like, you have to give them that education and mindset too. Cause what's going to happen with a lot of those people, they're going to turn 18 and they're like, woohoo, I'm going to go party and buy a car. And
I know, right?
It's like, how do you teach people to not do that? That's the hard part.
Isn't that like the age old question? Like, I mean, not to get too crazy with history, but like Genghis Khan and the Mongol warriors, like if they were raised in the terrible steppe plains, they were the most badass warriors. But as soon as they were successful and got raised in the cities, they were horrible.
Right.
So like if you're successful and then you like pass that on to your kids, you're almost giving them a harder time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Softer.
And I'm seeing it right now. And I've heard that, that's actually a really good example. But I've heard the other one too is like, if the first generation makes money, the second generation takes money, and the third generation just ruins everything or whatever if you have money. And I'm like, well, that's a horrible thing. That sucks because, growing up without anything, the first thing you want to do is give your kids everything. And my wife and I would talk about that. We're like, we got to stop buying them shit. It's like, they're getting too many things. They're little brat. I'm like, I don't want them to turn into brats. It's like when they were younger, when they got a little bit older, I told my wife, like, we're just going to start doing experiences so they can remember things and teach them how to travel, teach them how to do things.
There
and
you go.
Hopefully, things work out. And then like my son, he's, 19 going on 20. And it's like, hey, yeah, it's like, I have these things, but these are mine. These aren't yours. And you know what? When we die, mom and I will probably spend most of it when we're retired. So you better go make some money and learn how to invest. Because if I hold his hand too much, like I have friends that have kids that are, in their mid to late 20s still living at home. And I'm like, I don't understand. Dude, at 18, I was like, how do I get out of this house? Like, I'll go sleep anywhere. Get me out.
Yep.
Well, what's crazy is I think we were hitting a point too where I think it was easier to move out when you were 18 20 years ago, 25
Well, it
years
was
ago.
definitely cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
I was looking at the prices of apartments like in my old neighborhood. Like the first apartment I had was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and that was like pretty decent. And that was like $600.
So yeah, $600 a month if I remember.
That's not
correctly.
happening now.
No, I look at it now and I feel bad for, our kids who are grown and on their own. And like, God damn, how are they supposed to be able to afford the rent that they're paying these days?
It's unreal.
Especially since minimum wage is like not even, it's gone up maybe, I don't know, it's like 7.25 when I was young. What is it now in Arizona?
12 and a half.
And that was just recent that they bumped it up. Like
through voter referendum, mind you.
Yeah, right.
Not because the legislature where they were like, everybody's too poor.
Everybody's too poor. Yeah, it's tough. And it's like, you have to teach the kids have to learn how to do things because they're living in a whole different generation where like, I joked around like, I never thought we'd see interest rates like this. I'm like, this is insane. And we're not done yet. And I'm like, oh my God. Because I remember people joking around about in the 70s, you could buy like bonds at like 17% interest. I'm like, that's impossible. That'll never happen in my lifetime. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to see it. It's like,
Yeah.
What was the average interest payment in the 80s? Wasn't it somewhere around like 13% for like a mortgage?
Yeah, it was something crazy like that. Yeah. I was telling my wife, I said, if I see 17% bonds, I'm just going to start buying some bonds,
Buy them all.
What's the longest maturity you have? Because that's eventually going to go away. I mean, that's just free money at that point.
I'm just waiting for banks to start actually giving us a reasonable interest rate.
Yeah, they're like, nope, we're going to keep it.
Yeah,
it's so crazy.
Hopefully the years of 0.25% are done.
Yeah, it was, everything was so low. Now it's like, everybody's dealing with the inflation and, the interest rates. And it's a crazy time.
Yeah, I'm looking at the government bond 10-year yield.
Where are they at now?
It's at 3%, just over 3%. It got as low as 0.25%, but if you go back to 1981, it was at 16%.
Wow.
It's like, holy, wow. All right.
Man, if we hit that number, we're in trouble. It's like...
Back to Reaganomics.
Oh, yeah. It's terrible. I don't know. I try to not to focus on all. It's like, what can I control? It's like, just keep buying investments and watch this up. And one thing too is learning how to buy puts. Like, okay, this has been the greatest lifesaver of all time. It's like,
do you use them for protection or for speculation?
More protection than anything. Cause man, I think it's another thing, like the mindset, we're wired so weird. Like I'll buy them on Amazon because I have a good Amazon holding, but at the same time, I'll literally feel guilty when I'm buying it. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm betting against Amazon. But then I'm like, wait, I have Amazon. I'm just trying to hedge against it going down. But I'm like, but it shouldn't go down. And it's like this mental battle. And same thing with like, the S&P, you feel bad almost like, oh, I'm betting on the market going down. It's like the guy at the craps table that bets against everybody and everybody hates him.
But yet he's still winning.
Yeah, what's that one called? It's like what's that line he called when you don't
come?
Yeah, the don't come line. Yeah, it's like that guy pulls up and everybody's like, oh God, screw this guy.
Yeah. Fucking love craps too.
Dude, they're so much fun. God.
The reason that everyone hates him is because he's such a downer. Like everyone's having fun and like hooting and hollering, and then you get this guy who's cheering and everyone's losing. Like fuck that guy.
And you know what's crazy? I'm glad you brought craps up too, because people are like, "Oh, I can't believe you play craps." I'm like, dude, I said craps will teach you a lot about investing, because if you go to the casino and you get there and you're playing and you just play the pass line, you can play forever and have a great time and get free drinks. But what happens? Everybody's like, "Oh, what's that bet? Oh, you're betting the 6 and the 8, and then you're betting this and betting that." Next thing you know, you got like 5 bets out there, and then they crap out, and you're like, "Oh my god!" And the same thing with investing is, if you stick to the basics and your fundamentals, you're okay. But then you're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this and this," and then
Get fancy.
Yeah, it all blows up. It's like, it happens every time I play craps. I go in there at the game time, my wife laughs. I'm like, I'm going in, I'm just going to play pass line, drink for free, have a great time, and then go see a show. And she's like, "Well, how'd you do?" I'm like, "Well, I was up, and then I started betting the 6 and the 8, and then on the rollout." She's like, "You lost, didn't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I lost with what I planned to lose."
Fun.
Yeah, I had a good time. But it just reminds you of investing. It's crazy.
Except investing's the opposite. If you stick to if you stick to the simple plan, then you should do all right over the long term.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just sticking to it. It's just stick to it and don't deviate.
So you don't like the numbers? I fucking love betting the 5 and 9, 6 and 8.
Oh no, I do. But it always bites me. It's like,
He just said, Kyle, he can't help it.
Yeah, I can't help it. I start off.
Those are the best bets, though. If you
Oh.
stick with the pass line and those have the best odds. Anything else, it goes way down.
Yeah, I get sucked into it. It's like every time I do it, because you get so hyped up if you get a hot table and you're having so much fun, and you're like, "Oh, they're doing that bet too," and it's like, "Okay, I'll do that too." And then of course you get the don't come line guy, and you're like, "Son of a, get out of here!" It's like,
I'll just go find another table.
yeah, it's like, come on, man, don't kill the vibe. But I always, so it reminds me of the discipline that you need when you're investing too. The same way as like craps, is just sticking to things that you can understand and you can, improve your odds basically.
Mm-hmm. Did you play poker too?
No, I've never gotten into poker. It's just weird because I'm in Texas and we have Texas Hold'em here, and I've never really gotten into poker.
It's funny because I think there's a lot of skills that cross over from being a good trader to being a good poker player. I think we talked about that a few different times, between bankroll management, pot odds, and like sticking to like strategies.
Oh yeah, I love watching it. Like when that World Series of Poker get really popular and you watch like the finals and stuff like that, it's like, it's so cool to watch because there's so much strategy. Like you said, it's, you got to manage your money, and then you got to know what you're doing, when you're going to do it, have your strategy. And it's cool, but I've just never taken the time to really invest in learning about it.
I think I've got like 7 or 8 books in my library downstairs.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's the guy's like, I don't need another addiction.
I know, right?
It's like, I got enough things.
So what are some of the things you like to do for passive income?
So for passive income, that's the hardest one, because I always feel bad like telling people about that one, because we always see online is scams. We've seen the worst ones, and I was a part of the DeFi scams. Oh my God, it's like, oh, buy this and you'll get this percent in money for every month, and I'm like, okay, now it's at 0. That didn't work out.
And it's gone.
So I try to teach people when I talk to them about it, and that's another problem I run into, because I'll tell people, it's like, when I'm working with clients, I'm like, all right, this is the plan. What do you want to do? What's your goal? Et cetera, et cetera. All right, cool. You got your bookkeeper, CPA, you got a brokerage account, you got somebody there you can talk to. All right, cool. We'll get this set up, fund all those things, but then create another account where you can build that up to do other things. Because when you start getting older and you start acquiring more and more assets, other opportunities open up, like crazy cool things. Like after COVID, I would go to these events and I saw these guys that were buying a bunch of smoothie shops. And I'm like, wow, that looks cool. I want to do that. How do you do that? So then I started Googling it. I'm like, oh, okay, I can't do that. And then go to the event, talk to some people. I'm like, hey, congratulations. That was cool. How'd you do that? Oh, so-and-so set us up with that. Oh, okay, cool. And so I go talk to so-and-so. He's like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing. And then you're like, oh, there's private equity. You can buy into these businesses passively where you have no say in anything. You just get distribution checks as the businesses build up. And then, of course, real estate syndications are real big in Texas, which I'm a huge fan of those, because we had a rental house once and my wife wanted to kill me because, you're just constantly fixing stuff, chasing rent. And, of course, people are like, well, you should have a management company. But I'm like, we had one location.
I do a management company.
Yeah, it's like you'd have to have somebody to do it. And my wife didn't like. I was like, my plan was to do that and scale it up, but we did one and she was done. I'm like, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So the syndications, you don't make as much, but you don't deal with all the stuff.
You don't have any of the, yep.
Yeah. So I love those here.
Yeah. I got to put a new fucking roof on my house.
It just never ends.
Right. And then people think I'm like some rich landlord. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make ends meet, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the bad guy here.
Like, man, cut me a break on this month's rent. You're like, really? It's like
I got to make the mortgage payment. What do you think happens to that house if you don't pay?
Yeah, I was going to say, hold on, let me call the bank and see if they'll catch me a break.
Yeah, it's nuts. But those are my two favorites right now, is private equity and then real estate syndications.
What do you think about the real estate market going forward with the rising interest rates?
it is crazy because I was laughing with my wife because in 2008, we didn't experience everything the rest of the world experienced, like California and Florida, where like the houses were like worth so much and crashed. We're like, oh, in Texas, we never had that. This time we do. And I was like, I would never buy my house for what it's worth. Like, to me, I'm like, this is no freaking way I'm giving you that much money for this house that I live in. I'm like, but then where am I going to move to if I sell this damn thing?
I know.
It's like, so it's a whatever, catch-22, whatever. You're just stuck where you're like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, you want a different house, but then of course now the rates suck, and who knows what's going to happen there. So I talked to I've got a couple students that are realtors and pretty big into investing. And they're like, there's still a massive housing shortage, even though the rates are up and everything's down, there's not as much volume going, there's still just not enough houses. So they're telling me that they don't see it. Of course, it's their industry, but they're like, they don't see it changing for like the next 5 years. And I'm like, if that's true, I'll be happy and figure something out and figure out a way to get out of this thing in 5 years.
I don't know that I believe that.
Yeah.
We've got our sponsor, Sue. She does mortgages, and like I already can see that the books are I've talked to her about the business that she's got going on. You can already see everything dropping off. Like new loan applications have been in the gutter right now. I just saw a story too about one of the major banks laying off like a large percentage of their mortgage brokers.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. Like I think this is probably going to cool it down, at least, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I mean, because the returns we're getting on housing right now is just insane.
Yeah, I hope it's not another bubble, personally.
Yeah, I would definitely go with a cooling off cycle versus oh my God,
versus an '08 again.
Yeah, we don't want to do that again. That was horrible.
Yeah, that happened right after I bought my first house, I think.
I mean, if you're sitting over here without a house, 08 sounds great.
Yeah.
No, it does. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, you're like, I'm ready for 08.
Yeah, let me buy low, baby.
Dude.
I bought 3 houses during that last crash, and yeah, they all almost doubled in value. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I still had some of them, personally.
Yeah.
But
And that's how you go back to that old quote, you buy when everybody's, buy when everybody's fearful and sell when everybody's greedy.
Yeah.
And it's like when nobody wanted to buy house, the people that were buying houses in 2008 made a bunch of money. Same thing whenever there's a huge sell-off, it's the ones that are going in there, the crazy ones that are buying.
Just need that technical analysis and figure out what levels are stepping in.
Yeah. It's rough right now, but it feels like, it feels better after. It's kind of like that when you pull off a Band-Aid and it's like, oh my God, that hurt. And like, okay, it's getting better now. But like I said, there's still some downside probably, but at least it's, I don't know. Hopefully it's not much worse than that number you had.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when the next inflation reading happens.
Oh God. Have puts on standby.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see. Do we got anything else to cover here? I think we nailed everything.
Yeah, we covered a lot of good stuff. That was fun.
We talk fast.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I get
Normally this
fired.
would take an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. People give me that and it's funny because sometimes I'll try to pace it, but then if I'm having fun and getting into a conversation, I talk even faster. And I'm like, because that's when I get excited, I just because I love talking about this stuff and I just go fast.
We got a little bit of time left. Let's talk about some fun stuff.
Okay.
Did you see the Conor McGregor when he fought Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah.
Why was it that an MMA fighter can't throw a boxing punch?
It's a different, he was probably closer than a lot of them, honestly. It's just such a different, and it's weird because when I was doing MMA and I'd go work with a boxing coach, it was hard because the whole time when you're doing MMA, you're worried about getting taken down. So your footwork's just completely jacked for boxing.
So you're never getting your hips and everything into it?
Yeah, you never get set. So that's so when I would go to boxing class, I look like a drunk kid on a skateboard. It was this is horrible because I couldn't never set right. And they'd always give me a hard time. I'm like, well, I'm worried you're going to take me down. We don't do that here.
I was trying to figure out why it looked like he was always punching with his arms. And then, of course, that just gassed him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just there for the monster payday. That was ridiculous how much money he made.
I'll fight Floyd Mayweather for half that.
Dude, yeah. Which one did it? Wasn't it Logan Paul or whatever did it? It's
right.
Logan Paul fought somebody, yeah.
Him and Jake, they're fighting all kinds of guys. It's crazy.
They actually don't look that bad as boxers, which is kind of surprising.
I know. Yeah, they're putting work in.
If Floyd Mayweather fought anybody in the MMA, how do you think he'd do?
Under MMA rule set?
Yeah.
He'd lose.
It's done.
Without a doubt. Without it. Because all you got to do is avoid the the punches. You know, if the guy's a kickboxer, he has more of a chance, like an Anderson Silva type guy who can hurt you with like punches, knees, and kicks. Where Floyd, it's just like, just don't get hit. It's like, how fast can there was a famous fight back in the day when this one guy came in. He was a legendary Thai fighter, like amazing, and literally the bell rang and the dude was a wrestler. He literally ran and just ran him into the cage and tackled him.
Right.
Because he was like, I'm not going to, and afterwards he's like, I'm not going to kickbox with this guy. He's like, I'm going to tackle him. You know, they're high school kids. But he's like, you think I'm an idiot? It's like, that's what he's good at. I'm going to put him on his back where he can't do things. So it changes the game a lot. Takedowns, it's the great equalizer.
Like Hoist Gracie proved.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like little skinny dude.
Other than Brazilian Ju Jitsu, what do you think is the other most legit fighting style there is?
Muay Thai kickboxing, for sure.
Oh, man. You ever watch those Ong Bak movies?
Oh, yeah.
Those are fun.
Dude, I've been to Thailand and watched, seen the fights over there and stuff, and it's just a crazy different world. To them, it's like a religion. It's nuts. Like, I've been to Brazil a bunch for jiu-jitsu, but man, going to Thailand is just crazy. Dude, it's like, it's a religion. I mean, that's nuts.
I think I remember watching, God, I can't remember who the guy was. It was like these two guys that study MMA and they go around like
they traveled all around.
Styles.
Yeah, I watched that show too. They traveled all around and did different styles. Then they have to go fight.
Yep, they did the Muay Thai one, and like that one was just looked brutal.
It's just brutal. It's like, it's so crazy how brutal it is, but they make it beautiful there. And it's like the guys fight a lot because they know how to fight within the rules, and it's almost like they agree upon they're not going to kill each other for the first 2 rounds, and then like rounds 3, 4, and 5, it's just on.
There's a lot of ceremony to it too. I was surprised to see
tons. It's so wild. It's like I said, it's literally almost like a religion. Like they love it there.
Like you got to wake up and smack your shins against the tree for an hour.
No, that's blood sport.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my first trip when I was back when I was training hard when I was younger. My first trip to Thailand, and I was like all excited, because there's not that many white people going back then. This is probably 12 years ago. And I get there and they're like, oh, okay, we westernized a little bit of the training, so it won't be so bad. Blah blah. They said, okay, first thing we start the day with a 5-mile run. It's optional. I'm like, I like the word optional. It's like I've never trained with you guys. And it's going to be because they train twice a day when they're in their training camps. They'll train twice a day. The first session in the morning is like 2 to 3 hours, and then the night session shorter is like an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm running 5 miles before you put me through that hell. It's like, I mean, they're brutal. And for them, it's fun. It's a warm up. They run 5 miles just to get loose. And I'm like, dude, if I run 5 miles, I'm done for the day. It's over. I don't think I could even do it.
If I run 5 miles, somebody's picking me up at mile 2.
Yeah, it's insane. Like dude, they're the most conditioned people I've ever seen. I mean, it's just like going there was just such an eye opener. I'm like, this is such a cool place.
Which movie do you think best gets the fighting right?
Oh God, I don't know if any of them really do. There was a series. Oh God, there was a series that was on HBO, and it was decent. I can't think of the name of it now, but they had a series on HBO where it was like this family, and they were an MMA family and fought, and it was probably the closest to accurate. I'm like, oh, this actually makes sense. They're training, they're doing these things and that, and I can't think of it for the life of me.
What was that one that had the guy from Paul Blart Mall Cop?
Oh my God, yeah,
fighting movie.
Yeah, he produced it. Yeah, he's Kevin all friends James? With like a bunch of Kevin James is friends with a bunch of UFC guys, and he produced it and did the whole movie.
How did that one stack up?
That one wasn't bad.
I thought that one didn't seem all that
bad. Here comes the boom.
Yeah, yes. That one. Yep.
Here comes the boom. And it was like, it's cheesy, it's a comedy, but yeah, it wasn't bad because he's a huge fan. So anything people can do to get more eyes on the sport and awareness on the sport, I think is great. Even if the movie sucks, it's like just get more eyeballs on it. It's like Conor, like people love or hate him, but man, he changed the game. These guys, the paydays, they still suck, but the guys that are in the upper 10%, they're making life-changing money, so eventually we're gonna get to the point where the guys are making money they deserve.
Right.
Oh, I used to manage a desk at a hotel, and we had a guy come through every time he was on his way to his fight in Phoenix. He lived in like rural southern Arizona, and he was like the on-call guy, like that if somebody couldn't make the fight, you'd call him up and he'd show up to fight. And
it's a rough life.
Yeah. But he loved it. Like, and he was like telling me, he was like, it's now at the point where I can make this much. Like, he was making not like a ton more money than me, but he was making a little bit more money than me. And he was probably working. I mean, obviously his workouts every day, but like he probably did two fights a month.
Yeah, that's a lot though on the body though. It's like your body will break down so much after that. That's a tough workload.
You can't keep that going, huh?
No, the best.
Well, plus, you have no idea who you're fighting too. So
yeah,
you're always,
in those situations, like these other guys, they get like a full training camp. Like a lot of your top guys, they'll fight 2-3 times a year. It's like at the most because they start. You got some younger guys. Like we've got my coach Travis. He has a guy in the UFC now, Kevin Holland, that they call Big Mouth, just because he's so loud, but he's funny as hell. But he fought during COVID. I want to say he like set some record. I think he fought 7 times, which was nuts. But he didn't take. He's really good at not taking damage. Where if you take a lot of damage, it's a whole different story. But yeah, it's definitely hard on the body after a while.
I notice with boxing, like as soon as you get knocked out for the first time, like you're just never the same after that.
Yeah, once you get that big knockout they talk about, you don't want that one.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's hard to come. You see legendary guys that when it happens to them, they're never the same guy again, which sucks.
Well, the brain's like,
yeah, is it the brain or are they just scared?
Yeah, it's like no more, we're done.
Well, I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think the brain, the subconscious remembers and reminds you. Hey, remember that time?
Remember when everything went dark?
When you turned me off? Yeah, we don't want that again.
Yeah, the subconscious is so powerful too. It's like it doesn't forget.
No, can't lie to your subconscious.
No, it'll get you.
You try. All right, Dad. We got anything else we need to cover here?
Just Paul, where can people find you?
My favorite place is Instagram. You can go to Instagram /PAUL_HALME. It's out of social media. It's my favorite place. Facebook's just kind of become this disastrous place I try to avoid. Doesn't work. It's just a toxic wasteland. It's like you get in arguments with people and you're like, why am I even talking to this person? It's like, I don't even,
There's people on there that are just addicted to arguing.
They are. And it's like, sometimes you think, is this person real? Are they a bot? And then you find out they're a real person. You're like, man, your life's even worse than I thought. It's like, if you have that much time to just sit there and just trash on people. Yeah. So Instagram to me is just a happier place. People post like pictures and I love stories, see what people are doing. Yeah.
A lot of butts.
You got that too. But yeah, Instagram is a cool place. Then my website's PAULHALME.com. I have updates and do a lot of blogs on there, different things I'm doing. But Instagram's where I like to post a lot of fun stuff and give away different tips and stuff.
Also, what's the name of your book? I don't think we even mentioned it.
Oh, really. Yeah. The book that would relate is The Money Fight. So just talking about, and it's on Amazon. You can grab that. It's on Kindle and paperback. And it just goes through, the second phase. Like my first book was about how to open a gym and make money. And this book was basically the roadmap for guys when they're making money, how to get started investing, basic investment terminology, and then different paths they can take to start building up financial freedom. Because if you don't start, you're never going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, best time to start is yesterday.
Yep. Yeah, yesterday. Like just keep doing it every day.
Mm-hmm. All right, Paul, this has been a blast. I don't think we talk nearly as much about stocks as we usually do, but it was still a lot of fun for us.
I'm sorry. We need to talk more about Amazon. No, that's been a beating. It's going to get better, though. It's going to get better. I keep telling myself until they stop flying all those planes.
Dollar cost average in.
Exactly. If you still like it, keep buying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and especially after the split, it's like, you're like, oh, it's not even that much anymore.
That's what I love about it now is now I can actually trade options on it.
Yeah, the options changed so much on that thing. They were crazy.
Like $20,000 for one contract.
Yeah, you're like, no, I'm good on that. It's like, I'm going to not do that. Yeah, now the options are way more reasonable at this rate.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll have links for everything in the episode description, so anybody listening can go check those out. We'll make it super easy for them. Very happy to have you on, Paul.
That was fun.
Got to get. I'll send you a link to our Discord too for your boys. If they really want to learn more about options, we'd be more than happy to help them out.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
Show them what not to do.
Yeah, it's like here's the different things.
we're like the home improvement of investing.
I love it.
Trading.
I love it.
Let me show you my account. This is what you don't want to do.
Don't do this.
See, the starting number is lower than the number it is right now. That's bad.
That's bad. We want the other way.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. All right, folks, thanks for sticking around to the end. We hope you've had as good a time as we have talking with Paul today. Paul Halme. We'll have all of those links in the episode description. There's books, his blogs. Check them out on Instagram. We'll be coming at you pretty soon with a regular episode. But until then, happy trades.
Goodbye.
The future will be amazing, and that's all well and good. But what about today? You can feel the rush of a 400 horsepower Nissan Z. Or climb to new heights in the all-terrain Nissan Frontier. Light up the road in the all-electric Nissan Aria that feels like a sci-fi dream come true. The future will be great, but today is made for thrill. All you have to do is get in a Nissan and drive. 2023 Aria and Z not yet available for purchase. Expected availability is this spring for 2023 Z and this fall for 2023 Aria.
At the Jeep Memorial Day sales event, start your next big adventure with great deals on a great selection of Jeep brand vehicles. Right now, get 0% APR financing plus $3,000 total bonus cash on 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WK limited models. Don't miss this great offer. Hurry into the Jeep Memorial Day sales event today. Financing for well-qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital. Not all buyers will qualify. Residency restrictions apply. Offer ends 5/31/2022. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
Two Bulls in a China Shop is an entertainment program, and all thoughts and opinions expressed in the show belong to the hosts and not of any company. They are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide entertainment about stocks and the financial industry of trading. If you make trades based on what you hear in this show, you assume all risks for those trades.